The great Mughal court of Aurangzeb Alamgir was known for its silence. Not the silence of fear, nor the silence of still air, but a silence of discipline, an order that trembled beneath the weight of the emperor's gaze. Even the soft shuffle of silk garments from his ministers seemed careful, measured, as though each sound might alter a man's fate. On a cloudy afternoon, when monsoon winds rattled the carved jarokas of the imperial hall, the guards brought forth a strange visitor. He was unlike any man the court had seen, tall but fragile, wrapped in a coarse cotton shawl, his feet bare despite the polished marble floors. His eyes were deep, not in color but in depth, like a man who had stared at something too long and could never unsee it. He was mute. Not by shame, not by choice. He simply did not possess the voice to speak. In his hand, he held a small wooden slate and a piece of chalk. The wazirs whispered among themselves as Aurangzeb looked toward the man with quiet curiosity. "Who is he?" the emperor asked. A guard stepped forward. "Jahapana, we found him at the southern gate. He insisted on meeting the emperor. He does not speak. He only writes." Aurangzeb gestured. "Let him write." The man knelt, placed the slate on the ground, and scribbled with trembling hands. When he lifted it, the court froze. "Your Majesty, forgive me. You are in danger tonight." A single line. No exaggeration. No plea. Just truth, or madness. Aurangzeb narrowed his eyes. "From whom?" The man wiped the slate clean, wrote again. "From someone you trust." The hall erupted with whispers. Aurangzeb raised a hand, silencing them instantly. "Why should I believe you?" The man wrote slowly, as though each letter carried the weight of his soul. "Because I have seen it." Aurangzeb stared at him for a long moment, not with anger nor fear, but with the calm judgment of a king who had learned to see through men. "Seen? A dream? A vision?" The man shook his head and wrote, "Not a dream. The future." The court looked at him as if he had uttered blasphemy. A few ministers smirked, others stepped back as though fearing sorcery. Aurangzeb, however, did not move. His mind was a fortress, logic on the outside, mystery inside. "You claim to see the future?" he asked. The man nodded. "And you see my death tonight?" The man hesitated, then wrote, "Not death. A betrayal." The emperor leaned back on his throne, eyes analyzing every crease on the man's face. "What is your name?" The visitor wrote, "I do not remember." A murmur spread. Some thought he was insane, others believed the heavens had sent a warning. Aurangzeb rose from the throne. The man instinctively stepped back, but the emperor walked down the steps with a calm, steady stride. "Look at me," Aurangzeb said. The man lifted his eyes. "What do you see?" The man's hand shook as he wrote, "A man who will choose mercy tonight, or regret." The emperor's expression changed, just slightly. Mughal emperors were not accustomed to being warned. Yet something about the man, the stillness of his eyes, the trembling of his fingers, the unwavering truth in his silence, made the warning impossible to dismiss. Aurangzeb nodded to his commander. "Bring him to my private chamber." Gasps filled the hall. A mysterious mute stranger with claims of prophecy, invited into the emperor's private quarters? Aurangzeb, however, trusted his instinct more than the fears of others. Inside the candlelit chamber, the man sat cross-legged on the carpet. Aurangzeb dismissed his guards and locked the heavy wooden doors himself. "Now speak with your hands," the emperor said. "Tell me everything." The man held the slate, his fingers trembling like the branches of a tree in storm winds. He wrote, "I saw the future 3 nights ago. I saw a blade raised behind you. I saw betrayal." Aurangzeb asked, "From whom?" The man did not answer. Instead, he wrote, "I saw shadows, not faces." "Then how can you warn me?" The man wrote, "Because the shadow was standing close. Very close." A cold breeze rippled through the chamber, though no window was open. Aurangzeb sat down opposite the man. "If what you say is true, then Allah has shown you something rare. And if you lie," he paused, "then you are a bold fool." The mute man looked up. For a moment, tears shone in his eyes. He wrote, "I do not lie. My curse is that I cannot." Aurangzeb frowned. "Curse?" The man wrote slowly, painfully, "I see what will happen. Never what I want to happen." That one sentence struck Aurangzeb like an arrow. A man who sees the future, yet cannot change it? "Tell me," Aurangzeb whispered, "has everything you predicted come true?" The man nodded, then wrote, "Every time." Aurangzeb felt a chill. For the first time in years, he sensed something he had forgotten, uncertainty. A king's greatest enemy. "Why warn me?" Aurangzeb asked. The man hesitated, then wrote, "Because your fate is tied to mine." Aurangzeb's heart pounded, not in fear, but in curiosity so deep it felt dangerous. "How?" The man wrote, "If you live, I live." The emperor stared. The man erased the slate, wrote slowly, "If you die, I disappear." Aurangzeb leaned forward. "How do you know this?" The man raised the chalk, hands shaking violently, and wrote, "Because I have seen myself vanish on the same night I saw you fall." Aurangzeb inhaled sharply, and for the first time ever, the emperor believed him. Night descended over the Mughal palace like a slow, careful curtain. The sky was heavy with clouds, swallowing the moon, leaving only the flicker of oil lamps and torchlight to push back the darkness. The call to prayer had already faded, and the court had begun to withdraw into their private quarters. But Aurangzeb was not a man who slept easily on a night like this. He sat alone by the window of his private chamber, looking out at the faint outline of the courtyard below. Every guard, every shadow, every flicker of light felt sharper, louder, closer. Behind him, the mute man sat quietly on the carpet, slate resting in his lap. "You said you see the future," Aurangzeb said softly. "Does it ever change?" The man hesitated, then wrote, "Never." Aurangzeb glanced over his shoulder. "Then there is no point in preparing. If the arrow is already in the air, what good is the shield?" The man wiped the slate and wrote, "An arrow may still miss, but not if you stand and welcome it." A faint smile touched the emperor's lips. "So you say we can move, but the storm still comes?" The man nodded. Aurangzeb stood and walked toward him. "Tell me something small," he said. "Something that will happen in the next few moments." The man thought for a while, then wrote, "Your candle will die out." Aurangzeb looked at the 3 candles burning steadily near the Quran stand. "All 3, he asked. The man wrote, "Only 1. The emperor folded his arms and watched. Seconds passed. Then a minute. The flame of 1 candle wavered and returned to normal. Another flickered but held. The 3rd burned steady. Aurangzeb almost turned away, until a quiet, nearly invisible moth flew into the room, circling blindly toward the light. It brushed the smallest candle's flame, wavered, and fell. The flame trembled, shrunk, and died. The room grew slightly darker. Aurangzeb did not move for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "You knew this." The man nodded. "And you did nothing to stop it." The man wrote, "It is not my place to stop, only to see." Outside, a distant burst of laughter echoed from some distant balcony where careless princes and courtiers might still be awake, unaware of the tension that coiled around the emperor like an invisible serpent. Aurangzeb paced the room. "You said the shadow was close to me," he murmured. "How close? A guard? A general? A servant? A brother?" His voice hardened. "Or one of my own sons?" The man did not answer immediately. His hand hovered over the slate, then dropped. Instead of writing about faces, he slowly wrote a different line. "Betrayal is not always born from hatred." Aurangzeb's steps halted. "Then from what?" he demanded. The man wrote, "Sometimes from fear, sometimes from love." Aurangzeb exhaled slowly. "Love?" He did not like that answer. There was a knock on the door. Aurangzeb signaled, and 2 guards entered, bowing deeply. Behind them stood a man in polished armor with a calm, sharp face. One of Aurangzeb's closest commanders, Mir Kamal, faithful for years, unshakable in loyalty. Or so everyone believed. "Jahapana," Kamal said, placing a hand on his chest. "We have doubled the guards near the southern gate and the inner hall. No one will reach you tonight." Aurangzeb's eyes flickered to the mute man. The stranger watched Kamal with unnerving focus, as if measuring every movement. The emperor nodded. "And the inner circle?" "Only those you trust, Huzur," Kamal replied. "No one else." The words should have been comforting. Instead, they felt like ice. "You may leave," Aurangzeb said. Kamal bowed again, his hand momentarily brushing the hilt of his sword before he turned away. The mute man's gaze followed him until the doors closed. Aurangzeb turned. "Is it him?" The man slowly lifted the slate, but he did not write yes or no. He wrote, "If I answer this, you may act in anger, not wisdom." The emperor stared at the words, then chuckled, bitterly, but with respect. "You fear my justice that much?" The man erased the slate. "I fear your certainty." Hours stretched slowly. The palace quieted. The corridors that once echoed with footsteps now held only the soft shuffle of patrolling guards. Near midnight, Aurangzeb rose. "Stay," he told the stranger. He stepped out into the corridor, walking not like a man expecting death, but like a king going to inspect his palace. His back was straight, his steps firm, his eyes sharp. The torchlight along the walls cast long shadows. Every archway looked like a mouth waiting to swallow someone. He walked past the main hall, past the smaller prayer room, toward a narrow passage that led to a private balcony, the very route only his closest inner circle knew he used for midnight reflection. Somewhere behind him, quiet footsteps began to match his own. The emperor did not look back. He reached the end of the passage and stepped into the open balcony. The air was cooler there, carrying with it the faint scent of wet earth from the palace gardens below. For a brief moment, he let his hand rest on the cold stone railing. Then he spoke without turning. "If you are going to try," he said calmly, "now would be the time." The footsteps froze. Silence. Slowly, Aurangzeb turned. Mir Kamal stood in the archway, sword half drawn, face pale as marble. For a moment, emperor and commander simply stared at each other. 2 men bound by years of trust, now separated by a single decision. "Kamal," Aurangzeb said softly. Why? Kamal's hand trembled on the hilt. Forgive me, Huzur, he whispered. They have my family. Aurangzeb's eyes hardened, but his expression did not break. Who? He asked. The ones you refused to ally with, Kamal replied, voice shaking. They said if I do not end you tonight, they will burn my village, take my children, kill my father. Aurangzeb did not flinch. So you chose to kill your king instead. Tears shone in Kamal's eyes. I chose the only path I saw. No, Aurangzeb replied quietly. You chose the only path you were shown. Kamal drew the sword completely now, but his hands were unsteady. The man who had led thousands into battle could barely hold his own weapon steady against the one man he had sworn to protect. Aurangzeb took a single step closer. Behind Kamal, in the faint torchlight of the corridor, a third shadow appeared. The mute stranger. He had followed after all, silent as a thought. Kamal did not see him. His eyes were locked on his emperor, caught between duty and terror. Aurangzeb's gaze flickered toward the mute man for a fraction of a second. No words were exchanged. No signals. No plans. And still, something passed between them. Kamal raised the sword with both hands, desperation tightening his jaw. In that same heartbeat, the emperor moved, not backward, but forward. Aurangzeb stepped into the arc of the blade, grabbed Kamal's wrist, and twisted. The sword slipped, clattering to the floor. In one smooth motion, Aurangzeb pushed Kamal down to his knees. Kamal stared up, breathing hard, eyes wide with shock. Do you know why you failed? Aurangzeb asked. Kamal shook his head, tears spilling freely. Because I am weak, Huzur. No, Aurangzeb said. Because the future you were promised was built on your fear. The future I was warned of was built on my choices. He looked down at the sword on the ground, then back at Kamal. In the corridor, the mute man stood very still, watching, waiting. Aurangzeb bent, picked up the sword, weighed it in his hand. Every eye in that moment, Kamal's, the mute man's, unseen angels, waited for the emperor's decision. He could have ended it there. The betrayal was real. The attempt undeniable. Law and power stood at his side, sharp and ready. Instead, Aurangzeb slowly turned the blade and offered the hilt to Kamal. The commander stared as if the world itself had split open. You will go, Aurangzeb said, voice calm. You will take a small trusted unit. You will find the men who hold your family. You will bring them to me, alive. Your crime is not betrayal. Your crime is forgetting that fear does not own you unless you allow it. Kamal could not hold back his sobs. He pressed his head to the floor. I do not deserve this mercy. No one deserves mercy, Aurangzeb replied. That is why it is mercy. The commander rose, clutching the sword in both hands now as a promise, not a weapon. He ran from the balcony, vanishing into the depths of the palace. The knight exhaled. Aurangzeb turned to the mute man. So, he said softly, did your vision come true? Was this your betrayal? The man nodded. Then why am I still alive? The emperor asked. The mute man slowly raised the slate, hand shaking more than ever. He wrote, because you chose a road I had never seen. Aurangzeb frowned. You said the future never changes. The man wiped the slate with trembling fingers. For the first time, his hand paused for a very long time before writing again. Until tonight. Aurangzeb stared at the words. Then your curse is broken, he said quietly. The man's eyes filled with tears. He tried to write again, but the chalk slipped from his fingers. He reached for it, then stopped, as if realizing he no longer needed it. His lips moved. No sound came. But his expression softened, not in pain, but in relief. He brought his hand to his chest and bowed deeply to the emperor, a bow full of gratitude that words could never have carried. By dawn, the strange mute man was gone. No one saw him leave. No gate reported his exit. No guard remembered his passing. Some said he was a saint. Others, a cursed man finally freed. Aurangzeb never spoke of him openly. But that night, the emperor wrote a single private note in his diary. There are men who see the future, yet remain blind to mercy. And there are nights when Allah lets kings see that the sharpest sword is the choice not to strike. And somewhere between destiny and decision, the story of the sultan who never spoke became the story of a king who finally listened.